Russell Foster is an author. He's a clinical hypnotherapist. He's a speaker. He's a neuro-linguistic programming master practitioner. That's a lot of things.
So be careful what you say.
Exactly.
Got it all recorded in here.
Now you're scaring me. And Russell is also a friend. I've known Russell for several years. I knew him before he was an author, and I know him now that he is an author. So it's a joy to interview you. You are mostly known as a mentor. What I really want to know is, why are you so passionate about mentoring? That's not what we normally talk about here. What is it that made you so passionate about that?
Well, as you said, I do a lot of things, but I think the thing that makes me so passionate about mentoring, it kind of goes back to the fact that I've been pretty much a teacher my whole life, and back in the day before I met you, I taught sports for over 25 years, and the sight on a child's face or an athlete's face when they learn something new, or they overcome some sort of challenge that they didn't think they could be able to do, or more importantly, that process of working with them for sometimes a year or even two in some cases, and watching them actually set the goal and then a year later, 2 years later, achieve that goal is just an amazing feeling. And I think what I do is I've actually taken that and I use that. I mean, it really jazzes me up when I'm working with individuals on real life circumstances now instead of sports, but real life circumstances and being able to turn their life around. And it's the same internal feeling that just jazzes me up, and I think that's why I'm passionate about that so much.
I hear it. Specifically, what do you do for your clients?
Well, in order to kind of simplify this, I'm going to break it down to 3 things, and it's actually a bit more complicated than that, but really what I do is help people clearly identify what they want. And then once they identify what they want, I help them identify why they want it, which is really just as important, if not more so, because that really is that's what drives us. That's the passion, is from the why. Once we have those 2 things, we create real strategies to make it happen. And to get into a little bit of detail about that, what often happens is people do one of 2 things. Either they have a vague idea of what they want, or they know what they don't want, which is far more than the average. And you can't create a strategy for making something not happen. And that's what really comes down to. But when you clarify what they want, when we work together and clarify what they want, that becomes the power, because that is what leads us to creating the strategy. And once we have a strategy, then we can implement that, find out what's working and what's not. And that's really what it comes down to.
I like that. You can't create a strategy for helping them find what they don't want.
Exactly.
It sounds like some people have some pretty material problems that you help them with.
That's true.
Could you talk a little bit, without naming names obviously, but talk about some of the problems you help solve?
Yeah, well actually I like to think of myself as a solution finder more than the problems, but I do have 2 clients that come to mind, and it's interesting because they come from very different backgrounds, but they've got their life paths, for whatever reason, seem to follow this parallel. And both of them are in the medical field. One's a surgeon and one was delivering a baby, and they both, in one instant, their life path totally changed. One was a prominent surgeon who, in the middle of a surgery, actually the electric scalpel that he was using was not grounded, and then he actually ended up being electrocuted. And like this, in the middle of a surgery, he became the patient on the floor looking up, going like, okay, now what? Another kind of freak accident is another woman that I'm working with, also a doctor, and the same kind of thing happened. During delivering a baby, some sort of freak thing happened, and she actually cracked one of the vertebrae in her neck. So in the process of actually delivering a baby, again, she went from being the medical professional to being a patient. And not getting into all the details about their specific stories, but the bottom line was these are 2 people that had their life in order. They basically had their careers mapped out for them, and now neither one of them can practice medicine in the traditional sense. And so what I've had to do with them is help them identify who they are as an individual, what their strengths are in life, their experiences, and then help them find a new way to actually live out their life using that. And I call it a kind of an identity restructuring, is looking at their life circumstances. What does their new identity need to be to live the life that they want? And they're both doing great right now, by the way. So.
I'm glad to hear that. Help our referral agent friends here understand what an ideal client of yours would be. When they're in front of somebody, they should start thinking Russell Foster would be a person to introduce this person to.
Well, I think it kind of boils down to a couple different categories. If you happen to know somebody that seems to have the same kind of repeating pattern where they do something and then maybe a couple years later they're doing the same thing, either in a relationship or in a business where they keep running into the same problems, often this is a sign of unconscious programming that's kicking in and they don't know about. The other one is people like we just talked about that have some sort of major life crisis that really changes the nature of who they are without really a conscious thing happening. Just life throws them a curveball and all of a sudden they've got to start to really reformulate who they are. Another example that comes to mind is a woman that was she's in her mid-60s, and after 40 years of marriage, her husband ended up just taking off one day without even really telling her. So now she is in the process of recreating who she is as an individual, and she's had to take on responsibilities in the business that they ran together that she had no idea how to do or even really interest in, and so I've had to work with her on that. So it really kind of fits in. I know that that's a kind of an ambiguous answer for that, because ideally, I mean, the clients I'm looking for, they do fit all kinds of patterns, but I feel like those are a couple, at least,
Okay.
categories that seem to fit the most for what I'm looking for.
You've talked a lot about individuals. Do you do any type of group work or any type of other type of coaching, teaching?
I do. I'm working actually this year. I'm going to develop an online program for people because basically the premise is that most people really are not getting in their life what they want because they haven't clearly identified it, and that's really going to give some people some exercises, some ideas about how to clearly identify what they want, and just as important, if not more important, is why they want it, and that's really what's lacking. Mm-hmm. Quite often people are in a path that they have gotten into by default almost, and now they're in a place it's like, okay, I'm not really satisfied with what I'm doing, but I didn't know why I got into it to start with, and it's like, now what? And so it's that why that really kind of becomes, because that's what makes life fulfilling for us, is following the path that really is passionate to us about why we're doing it.
Interesting. Any type of media work, such as speaking on TV, speaking on radio, speaking internet blogs, anything going on there?
These are all things that are in the works. I mean, 2012 is going to be a year for putting all these together. I've got several audio programs. I've got 2 workshops that I'm going to be doing, and these are all things in my future, but nothing really is in the very near future, let's put it that way.
Okay.
But these are all things that are developing for 2012 for me.
Let our referral network friends, let them know what your deal is.
Okay, the deal is 20% for 1 year. The mentoring contacts generally run between $4,500 and $6,000 for the year, depending on the nature of the work that I do with the individual. And of course, that would continue on for the year of the contract.
Excellent. Questions? I think you scared them all.
Probably did.
Sometimes it takes a while, but
Toby.
Russell, one of the unintended consequences of our education system is most people don't know what they really want. And one of the mistakes that people make when they go to set goals is they set goals for things they think they're supposed to aspire towards.
Mm-hmm.
How do you help people separate what they think they should do from who they really are?
Well, it's a process of just really asking the right kind of questions of them, and then just actually attaching to the emotion that really makes them feel honest and integrity with themselves and who they are. Like you said, quite often when I talk to people, I can get a real sense of whether they're in alignment with who they are, if they're lying, even to themselves, if they're being deceptive. I mean, some of the NLP tools and hypnosis tools really help with that. But I mean, if you just look at somebody and ask them what they want, and you can just ask them several different questions, and which one is the one that lights them up? You know, I mean, I've had people that are in the medical field and they didn't want to be, you know, and I've dealt with that a lot of different times. People get into careers. So it's really just a matter of asking very open-ended questions and just letting people just choose what they want to do. But it is, I mean, sometimes that's the bulk of a third of the work that I do with people can be that way. It can take several months for people to actually disentangle themselves from what they're currently doing to be honest enough about what it is that they really want to do. Because quite often, like you said, pursuing your dream can be scary if you're locked into something else. You know.
Rob.
If you could mention to us, regardless of having a great coach or mentor, how important it is to have a really good peer group around you. People who are not negative, people who are not afraid, and say, you can't do that. You know, there's a lot of people struggling with their peer group.
What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think the 3 things are for the individual themselves to have a clear picture of what they're doing, and then also to have a coach or a mentor, whatever terminology seems to work. But the third thing is that environment, that peer group of people that can help them support in whatever they need to do. Because sometimes as an individual you need support, but you don't need to go to your mentor to talk about something specific. You want like an accountability group. You know, your peer group is a really good place to go and be accountable for people, and also help everybody else. Because as individuals, we do grow better when we grow as a group, and that's a perfect suggestion.
What do you think of softball?
What's that?
What do you think about SSN as a peer group?
I think it's a great one.
Okay. Steve, I think you had a question.
I do. The program that you're going to be putting together, the web program, is this going to be something where people can do this online, to find out what you really are looking for? Or is that something, that they're going to be able to kind of work through
Well,
an online type thing?
Yeah, I'm actually setting up 2 programs.
Okay.
One would be an online series where people could actually watch videos that are kind of in order.
Right.
You know, like let's say a 12-step program where they watch the first step, which is clearly identifying what it is that they want and why they want it, because they're really related. So that would be something they could watch in a video program. And then another one is actually like a group coaching session that would kind of it would kind of dovetail the same thing. So we would work on and talk about the same kind of activities, but one would be the individual looking and maybe doing specific exercises on their own, and then another one would be in a group coaching call.
Okay,
something like
good,
that. So
because
there really are
I'm
two.
thinking, just this to me dovetails with what Andre was talking about with the baby boomers. People are retiring, but a lot of people can't afford to actually retire, or a lot of people don't really want, they're retiring from maybe corporate jobs, and now they would like to pursue something that, it's like, well, I think I'd really like to do this, and it seems like this would be a very good way for people to kind of evaluate.
Well, and it's interesting that you said that, because I think a lot of times what happens too, and I'm working with one woman on this, one of the clients I'm working with retired a couple of years ago, and for the first year it was great, she had all this free time, blah, blah, but I tell you what, now she's driving herself crazy because she doesn't know what to do with all her time. And that's exactly what we're working on with her.
It's like me, it's like I sat home for a couple of years and I thought, I'm just not, I would rather be working, I would
Right.
rather be,
Right.
and I would really like to take your course because I'm sure I must be passionate about something. I just don't know what it is.
Well, talk to me afterwards and we'll find out.
Actually, I'm very passionate about SSN, so that's my job,
That's
is to
good.
figure out how to make this,
Toby had one more question,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, sure, Russell, how would you differentiate being a coach from being a mentor?
Well, the way I like to look at it is a coach tends to be more focused in a specific area. Like I might be a tennis coach, or I might be a swimming coach, or I might be a business coach. What I like to do is work with people on their whole life plan. Because what a lot of people don't recognize is you can make a change in one area of your life, either in your business and your personal life, but it's going to have an effect somewhere else. And quite often people don't recognize that. And so one of the obstacles is actually having a plan that looks at the whole picture, and that's what I like to do. I mean, I can help people lose weight, I can help people quit smoking, but I don't do that because it's not part of their life plan. If we create a whole life plan and that happens to be one of the things they want to do, that's something that we can work, that I can work on with them. But I think that that's one of the obstacles that people don't recognize, is that you want to start a new business, it might very well end up taking 3 or 4 hours extra of your day, or 20 or 30 hours of your week, and that's going to take a toll in other areas. It's going to take a toll in your health and your ability to work out and your relationships maybe. A lot of times people don't recognize all that. So that's why I like the word mentor better than coach.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I'm not even sure how to phrase this question, but do you see your work with individuals as applying possibly to companies that are in trouble? In other words, instead of, you don't give workshops or keynotes or.
I'm not currently doing that. I mean, that's on my plan for 2012 and beyond. But right now, I'm kind of focused on this particular area.
Right.
But let's say you did have a particular person was having issues in their business. I would be very happy to work with them one-on-one and find out what it is. Because quite often we know what to do, we just don't know how to do it. We don't have the strategy, or there's some sort of emotional issue that's going on that's behind the scenes that's driving it, a fear of something that they haven't identified they don't want to deal with.
Well, let me follow up on that then. If a company had an employee assistance program, which many companies have, especially larger ones,
Sure.
would they be potentially a group that you want to be introduced to?
Sure, that would be great. That would be fine.
All right, good job.
Thanks, sir.
This is where you applaud.